Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, the 25th of January. It is freezing cold. I had to de-ice 2 cars to get here today because my husband's car was in front of mine. So my fingers are still a bit chilly. I hope you're okay. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. I think it snowed a little bit here. It snowed where I was, but it didn't settle yesterday. So I hope you managed to get out and play in the snow for a short time. I know it's disappeared now, but anyway, it is my assembly this today, and I'm going to share my screen with you as usual. Here we go. Let me start my slideshow. Here we are. Right. So good morning, everyone. Now, as you're all aware, we have a core value of this half term is curiosity, which is an eager wish to know or learn about something. And I actually was thinking about this assembly this weekend, and the things that happened to me this weekend, I've tried to put into this assembly because they fitted really well with our value. So on Saturday, as usual, every Saturday, I take my dog, usually with my daughter, for a walk in the woods near my house. So we walk to the woods. It takes about 10 minutes to get there. And then we have a route around the woods. Now, anybody that knows me quite well knows that I have a terrible sense of direction. I can get lost walking around the block. But so what I have done is that I have a fixed route around the woods so that I know where I'm going. I've made lots of mistakes in the past and I know how long it takes me. But sometimes being curious does mean that we need to take a different path. So here is my dog Buzz. This is him waiting to go for a walk before we go out. And there he is. This was taken this weekend. So you can see how muddy it was. We were all both covered in mud, my daughter and I, when we got home. So this is Buzz, and he loves going to the woods, as do I. Now, this is another dog that we see in the woods quite often, and this dog's name is Sam. Now, Sam is usually being walked by a gentleman, and we always say hello. But Sam doesn't really like Buzz. Buzz is not a brave dog. Buzz is scared of all other dogs, and particularly great big dogs like Sam. So Sam looks just like this. He has piercing blue eyes. He's quite a large dog, and I think he would probably quite like to have Buzz for lunch if he could. So we see Sam quite often, and often he is on a lead. But this weekend, on Saturday, we were about 5 minutes into our walk into the woods, and we turn a little corner, we go round a corner on the right hand side, and then there are a flight of steps that we normally then climb up. The steps look very much like this. Now, waiting at the top of the steps was Sam, and he didn't seem to have a lead on, and he was waiting at the top of the steps, and he was looking quite intently like this at Buzz, who was waiting at the bottom of the steps. So a quick decision was needed, and Daisy and I, my daughter, we decided not to go up the steps as we normally would. We decided to take a different path that day for a quiet life, I have to say. So whereas we would normally go this way, we decided to go this way instead. Now that decision then ended up us going in to a different part of the woods, one that I don't normally go to or rarely go to. And what was really interesting were all the things that we saw along the way that perhaps I wouldn't have normally seen, or we wouldn't have normally seen. So the first thing we came across was this piece of pottery that was on the floor. And I thought, gosh, that looks as if it is pretty old, actually. It was just covered by some leaves. It looked like it had been there a long time. There was sort of ingrained mud on it. And it made me curious, actually. I started wondering, well, how did it get there? How does a piece of pottery end up in the middle of a woods? Was it an ancient picnic that maybe some Victorians had 100 years ago, and a plate slipped and broke, and there it lay forevermore? Who did it belong to? It was quite a nice plate, as you can see, with a beautiful pattern on it. And how long had it been there? So just this fragment of pottery started me thinking and reminded me of our value this half term. Anyway, we carried on. And on Saturday, it was actually fairly sunny where I was. So it was quite pleasant to be walking in the woods. We then, because we were in an unfamiliar area of the woods, we came across this iron fence that, again, I hadn't seen before. And it was really interesting because it kind of went up and down. It was a fascinating shape. And at one end of it, there was a gate. There's Buzz trying to peer through it, with a brand new padlock and chain on it. And it fascinated me because I thought, well, why is this part of the woods fenced off? Why this particular part? Does somebody own this part of the woods? Why is there a brand new lock and chain on there? Had there been one there before? Had something happened on the other side of the fence that had been, I don't know, maybe there were dangers on the other side of the fence, and that's why it's now been cordoned off? So we peered through, and we could see there was quite a steep slope, and at the bottom of the slope, obviously someone had either got in before they padlocked it or had climbed over or through the fence, and they had built this tire swing. Can you see that? Like an old bicycle tire hanging from a high tree. And there were these tree stumps that had been arranged in sort of a semicircle, where people had obviously spent time sitting, maybe talking, playing on the swing. And it just intrigued me, because I thought, well, why is this bit fenced off? Who was that? Who put that up there? Is it the people that maybe own this bit of land? Did they put the padlock up there? So lots and lots of questions sprung into my mind when we saw this padlock on this fence. Moving on now, in the woods, actually, there are quite a few of these carvings, but this was one that I had never noticed before. It was set back from the main path, and it had been carved into an old tree stump. Now, as you can see from, there's Buzz there, it is quite a large tree stump, and the carving is beautifully done. It's of this man who has, you know, a beard and a moustache, and his hair is kind of made from the acorns and oak leaves of the tree that it once was. And sadly, the tree has now died. So it's just the tree stump that they've left there. And again, we stopped and we looked at it, and actually we felt it, because all the grooves were so carefully done. And again, it sparked our curiosity, and it made us think, who had made the carving? How long had the carving been there? Had someone done it recently in lockdown? How had it been made? Like, what tools had the person used to carve out of this huge tree trunk? How could you get such precise marks on his beard and his moustache and his eyes? What had they used for that? And was it a carving of a real person? Did the person who did this carving, did they look a bit like this? Were they making a portrait of themselves? Or was it another story? Was it somebody they knew? Or was it a story that they knew? So again, lots and lots of questions sprung into my mind from there. Now, we walked a bit further and we climbed a very, very steep slope. We had to kind of clamber up it. And there was another fence, and here is the fence. And beyond that fence, there were these huge sort of tent-like structures. Now, what I had to do is hold my camera over the fence. So there you can see, most of them were green, some of them were blue, but they were arranged in rows, and they were huge. And we thought, now, what could that be? It wasn't really, surely not a campsite, not in this weather, it would have been freezing. And it was quite a large expanse of land. So I don't know, about 4 or 6 football pitches right next to each other. So quite a large area of land. And so we decided to walk on and take a closer look. And what we discovered was that they were allotments. So all of these kind of tents, they were protecting the crops that had been planted or were going to be planted, because people that lived near me are growing their own fruit and vegetables. And they'd organized it so neatly. They were obviously very well kept. And it fascinated me. And I wondered what they were growing and how long it would take to grow. And next time we would come round, you know, would we notice a difference? What would grow first? So yeah, it was very, very exciting to see that. We were very close to the end of our walk by this point, and we were on the path on the way out of the woods because we could start to hear the road. And this is something, the very last thing that we came across. And I hope you can see that. It looked as if it had been made very recently. And it was made from a circle of branches. Now, not any old branches, because the branches had obviously been chosen specifically or cut for their width and their height, because they were arranged in almost a perfect circle around this tree trunk and had been rested very carefully from the ground against the tree trunk so that they formed this sort of cone-like den. And it was so interesting that I stopped and I took a picture, and a man appeared from the bushes actually, and he was carrying a bundle of these branches. And I asked him and said, "Did you make this?" And he said, yes, he had, that he had spent all week making it. Now, I would estimate the man was about my age. So he wasn't, you know, he wasn't a young boy, but he'd spent the week in the woods. He said he'd always wanted to build one and that he loved walking in the woods. He lived nearby, and that he'd seen similar dens in other woods in the area when he'd been for a walk, and he had always wanted to make one. And as he was working from home, he decided to start one, I think last week. And it had become a bit of an obsession for him. He said, I've been up here doing this every day, kind of changing it, adding to it, amending it so that it is the best den that he could possibly have made. And he also said that he had enjoyed it so much that it had kind of made his week. And I thought, that again, I'm going to include. I said, I'm a teacher and you're going to be part of my assembly on Monday. And is it all right if I take a picture of your den and use it? And he said, oh no, that's great. So we both had such a great time in the woods on Saturday. I really wanted to share it with you. And probably I wouldn't have seen half the things that we did had Sam not made us take a different route around the woods that day, had Buzz not been such a, I don't know if you can call a dog a scaredy cat of all other dogs that we had to divert our route. But in the end, I was really pleased because we saw things that I hadn't seen before. Now, I'd like you to think about what could you do this week that is just a little bit different, that you can feed your curiosity. Why not take a different route home from school? So when your parent comes and picks you up, why not say, should we go this way today? See if you can see anything different. Take a diversion, maybe take a slightly longer route home, maybe go through the park, or I know that there are woods near here too. Maybe from your book corner or from a bookshelf, or if you're coming into school to change your book this week, choose a book you probably wouldn't normally read. Just sort of, or maybe take a lucky dip, shut your eyes, put your hand in the book box and then read the first one that comes into your hand. Or maybe do your own research. Be curious about the area in which we live. So maybe do some research about Shirley, famous people that had lived in Shirley, or famous places in Shirley that are renowned for a particular event or a particular person who lived there or did something amazing here. Feed your curiosity, because we all know that our curiosity keeps our brains healthy and alive. So I hope you all have a fantastic week. Let me just stop sharing. Keep warm today. I'm not sure if the snow is going to come back. There's certainly lots of ice out there, and I look forward to seeing you around school today or on your Zoom calls. Anyway, have a good week, everyone. Bye-bye.